Welcome to the You Need More Money podcast. I'm your host, Matt Manero, where I come to you every week from my studio in Dallas, Texas. Today is a rainy Tuesday, ugly, cold day. Reminds me actually of San Francisco, where I was yesterday. I was in there in San Francisco on my last trip of 2017 in an effort to make an acquisition for commercial fleet financing, which I do think is going to go through. So that's a very exciting movement. It puts commercial fleet in the technology business as well as the equipment financing business. So that's pretty cool stuff. There'll be more details on that coming. I want to talk about today the downside of 10xing your life. Now, we all know what I'm talking about when it comes to 10xing. And my friend Grant Cardone made the concept of 10x actually a global phenomenon with his book, The 10X Rule. By far, I've read thousands of books. By far, The 10X Rule is my favorite book, the most impactful book of my life. But as I have begun to, over the last 5 years since I read that book, try to 10X my life, I've really began to realize flaws in my execution of a 10X lifestyle. And I know that if I'm having flaws in my execution of a 10X lifestyle, so are you. And so I began to make notes recently about the downsides of a 10X life. And what do we really do when we think we're 10Xing it? And I do want to be clear that everyone should try to 10X their life. Everyone should follow the roadmap that was put out by Grant Cardone in the 10X rule. And the reality is, of all the people that I know, I don't think anyone 10Xs their life more than Cardone. No one pushes himself harder than he does. He is constantly waking me up and reminding me that I can push harder. But the reality is, people think they're 10Xing things and they're not even coming close to it. So let's talk about it for a little bit. One of the reasons that I loved the 10X rule so much was because it really, for the first time in my life, it gave me permission to stop worrying about others, stop worrying about my competition or my family or my friends, and really just go for my potential, to tap into my potential. And I'm sure the book has had the same effect on many, 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 many people. And that's why I think that book is, for me, my favorite book of all shapes and sizes ever written. But in reality, very few people ever 10X anything. In fact, most people start at 0X and they get to about 3 or 4X. And because they're now out of broke, they begin to just get comfortable. I mean, I'm going to go through some examples here on the podcast today of what I'm talking about. But if you were to ask my new friend Ed Milet, he would say they sell out. They sell their will long before they actually operate at a 10X level. And therefore, they never get to the 10X level. I mean, here's some real life examples. Let's say that someone's in the car business and they go from selling 4 cars a month to selling 20 cars a month because they really start to get after it, right? Massive levels of improvement. But if you apply the 10X rule, they should have been selling 40 cars a month. So that car salesperson actually only 5X'd his or her life. Let's say a person earned 50 grand last year, and this year they earn 150,000. Life got a heck of a lot better for that person, but they didn't 10X their life. They only 3X'd it. Again, well done, great job. 150 to 50 to 150, big change, man, in a short period of time, in 1 year, massive change. But it's still only a 3X. How about if you didn't work out at all? You did no physical activity whatsoever, and now all of a sudden you're working out 3 days a week. Well, I suppose it depends on what period of time you gauge, but you went from 0 to 3. That's 3X. What would happen if you went 0 to 10? 10 workouts a week. Yeah, that means that you're doing doubles most of the days. That means you're working out 10 times versus 0. What would happen? A lot of things would happen. The bottom line is that the lie that we tell ourselves living a 10x lifestyle is that we're living a 10x lifestyle. We're not. Most of us are living a 3 or a 4 or a 5x lifestyle. We're not living a 10x lifestyle. That doesn't mean you can't have massive improvement 3, 4, 5 times from where you were, but it ain't 10. The challenge is, how do we get to a 10x lifestyle? How do we actually push to a level that gives us 10 times the results? Man, I pushed so hard for so many years. And for probably a period of 5 years, I'm going to say from, 2010 to 2015, I really do think I was pushing at a 10x pace. But then I stopped. The reality is when my business got to $100 million a year, I stopped operating at a 10x mindset. And my goal is to get back to it for 2018. But here's where it gets scary. Because life can improve so much at a 3 or a 4 or 5x that you think a 3 or a 4 or a 5 is actually a 10. You think that you're operating at 10x, but you're not. You're just operating at a 3 or a 5. And to really get tough about it, the 10x mindset becomes entertainment. It becomes fodder. It becomes a thought process that really is false. We think we're operating at a 10x lifestyle because we're no longer where we were a year or 2 or 3 ago, but we still didn't tap into the 10x. You know, my definition of false positive, I think it's a massive problem, is that people reach a level where they think they are doing better than they really are. Again, using that 50 to 150 example, a guy goes from 50 grand a year to making 150 grand a year. Fantastic improvement. Guy goes basically from struggling to having excess cash. But it still doesn't mean that they're doing unbelievably well. In fact, I got this text from an old friend of mine who told me that one of his clients had to post-date checks for him. And one of the most recent checks that needed to be post-dated was for $150. And my guy said, sure, no problem. I mean, it's sort of the way it's been. It's no problem. I'll take your post-dated check. And then the next time he sees the guy shows up in a Range Rover. It's like, wait a minute. 2 weeks ago, you were post-dating checks for $150 and now you're driving a Range Rover? Well, yeah, you got approved for a Range Rover. Has no bearing on whether or not the guy has any money. All right? That's false positive, man. Where just because you can get approved for a Range Rover has no connection to whether or not you're doing well enough to be buying a Range Rover. The reality is we get a little soft. We get comfortable. We get satisfied with our new level of success. And the information that we used to consume, right, almost becomes entertainment. In other words, in the early days of getting after it and improving our situation, the information we were taking in was so fresh and so new that we could apply it and move the needle. That's what got us to the 3, the 4, the 5x result. But then we kind of stopped taking in that level of consumption because now that we have some of the foundational stuff figured out, it's nuances, it's tweaks. It's the small things that begin to make the difference, not these massive upgrades. And therefore, the information starts to become entertainment. It begins to feel good to take in these motivational videos that we're watching because we enjoy the content. But the 10x push stops. So what happens if you really begin to 10x it all? Let's go through it for a little bit. Let's talk about the positives first. The number one positive of massive 10x lifestyle is you will be in the best shape of your life, period. You will be in great shape, physical shape. You will earn more money than 99% of the people on the planet, because in order for you to continue to 10x thing, if you went 50 to 500, 50 grand a year to 500 grand a year, you're already in the top 1%, period. Top 1% is $384,000. By the way, that depends on which state you live in. Little trivia here. The most affluent state in the United States as far as earners is state of Connecticut. To be in the top 1% of earners in the state of Connecticut, 1.4 mil. Just as a little bit of a side note. You will earn more money than 99% of the people on the planet. You will have less free time because your calendar will begin to be filled to the brim. You will fail more. You will make more mistakes. You will be tired. Your wife will miss you. Your kids will miss you. You will miss games. You will miss date nights. And you will have more problems. That's how it plays out. When you start to crank at that pace, at that level of intensity, when the energy starts to burn so hot, you're going to make mistakes, man. Your life is going to not be perfect. It won't be comfortable. Why do you think we stop at a 3 or a 4 or a 5x? Because we don't want to push any harder. We don't want to miss the date nights. I was in San Francisco. I had the opportunity to fly out there to meet with this technology company. I've had multiple meetings with this technology company, but I had the opportunity now to go to their headquarters and really strike the deal, close the deal. And the only chance they had to meet, and I wanted to continue to push on it for 2017, the only chance they had was yesterday, Monday. That was it. It was the only shot they had to meet with me. I couldn't get in on Monday morning and out Monday evening to give us enough time to hash out the details and do the movement from San Francisco Airport to their offices in Walnut Creek. There wasn't enough time to do it, a morning flight to an afternoon flight. So I had to leave on Sunday. I booked the ticket. I go home and I say to my wife, hey, I'm rolling on Sunday. I'm going to be in California, but don't worry, I'll be back Monday night. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going to strike this deal. I'm going to buy this technology company and put us in the technology business and really catapult us for 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. She's like, Sunday night's our Christmas party, our family Christmas party. We're having people over. But you're not going to be here for the Christmas party? Nope. I'm not going to be there for the Christmas party. What would your wife say in that situation? By the way, would you even do that? Or would you say to the technology company, oh, man, holidays, and I can't make that work, man. It's going to have to happen on first or second week of January. You know, that's what it takes, y'all. And I'm not even pushing at a 10X lifestyle. That's what happens when you start to push past a 3 or a 4 or a 5X. All of those mistakes begin to happen. And you need to have that circle around you that is willing to go with you for the ride. Now, my wife wasn't all that happy about it, but she was cool about it. She understood it. She got over it. What would happen in your house if that had to happen, man? Because that's the way it played out in mine. I want to give you an exercise on how you can really begin to test your level of 10X. Let's talk about it. I want you to take out a piece of paper, and on the left-hand side, I want you to draw the activities. So I want you to put your income, and let's do this on a monthly basis. I want you to put your income, the number of workouts, the number of date nights, the number of family dinner nights, the number of cold calls you're doing, the number of personal visits you're doing, the number of appointments you're doing, the number of networking events. And then the last one I want you to put down is the number of days that you're on the road, the number of days that you're sleeping in someone's hotel. And then next to that number, I want you to put times 10. Equal sign. Over on the right-hand side, I want you to put the numbers. So now, if your income number was $100,000 in 2017 times 10, you'd be making $1 million in 2018 if you were 10xing it. Go through that exercise and really begin to see at what level of X are you really operating at. Some of you might think that you're 10xing, and the reality is you're living at a 1x. Some of you might be living at a 0.7x. And very rare. Only the top of the top, the beasts, the animals, the Cardones, Vaynerchuks. Only those guys are operating at a 10x level. So do that exercise. I think it will help you. Keep it real, y'all. I mean, look, I love the 10x mindset, and so do you. But when you really keep it real, most of us never operate at a 10x. And therefore, we begin to convince ourselves, we begin to think that we're living in false positive, or we are living in false positive because we think we're operating at a 10x, when in reality, we're only operating at a 3 or a 4 or a 5x, right? See, a 3 or 4 or 5x helps you get out of broke, but it will never help you to get into rich. Period. Listen, even if you're making 100 and you 5x it to get you to 500, it's still hard for you to get filthy rich at 500. You got to really crank it up. Could you imagine if you went from 500 and you just stayed on the 10x massive insanity push for another year or two, and you started clicking off at $5 million a year? For 2, 3, 4 years, you were knocking down 5, then 10, then 15, then 20 million in aggregate income. Dude, that gets you in the game. Do this exercise that we just went through. See the result. I'm going to leave you with this. #push harder. I'll see you down the road.